really have an opportunity to speak to anybody who is interested in sports and entertainment law. I always welcome those opportunities. A special shout out to Professor Dickerson and as well as Destiny, who is such a wonderful law clerk for us that we asked her to extend her period into the fall. So it's been great working with representatives of Southern University Law Center. It's just really been great, and I'm happy to be here. So with that said, I will tell you that I am current Deputy General Counsel and Managing Director of Legal Operations within the NCAA. And as recent as last week, I served as the Interim Managing Director of Human Resources. But after a 6-month interim run, we have now hired our new HR leader. And so I'm very happy that she is here and am in the process of transitioning the HR team back to her. So a little bit about how I got into sports. Unlike other panelists, I kind of fell into sports. Always was a big sports fan, but when I went to law school, I didn't have any frame of reference that there was a such thing as a sports career in the law. Quite frankly, of course, I knew there was the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, but I didn't know anything about it or how to get into it. What I set out to do was to really become a great attorney. I knew I wanted to go into corporate law. I wanted to be transactional. And so for me, the perspective was, let me just focus on being the best damn lawyer that I can be, and then I will let the career take care of itself. And so with that, I really was the type of person that, and the type of professional that every opportunity that walked through the door, I took it. I didn't turn down any type of work. It didn't matter what the subject matter was. And so I can say today in my role, everything that I have done in my career up to now has really folded into what I do every day as counsel for the NCAA. And so by virtue of just focusing on being a corporate lawyer, my career just kind of went from one job to the next in the corporate space. So then I had this interesting experience where we were living in Atlanta by this time. We had moved from DC, which is where I went to law school. We were in Atlanta, and I started playing in a semi-professional roller derby league. And it turns out that I was the only person in the league that was a lawyer. There was one other lawyer, but she wasn't practicing. She was in real estate or something like that. And so we started getting, as the sport grew and as our popularity within the city grew, we started needing sponsors. We started getting requests for sponsorships, and we started trying to think seriously about our merchandising and our marketing for our league, and just some of those business things that are behind the scenes in sports, that is not all the glitzy stuff, but it's really the business of sports. And so because I was the only attorney in the league, I just kind of started doing our legal work. And so that's when I realized, wait a minute, this is awesome. And so at that point, I was doing that for a couple of years. And then a friend of mine sent me a posting for a position that they saw in Daytona, Florida, for a role as senior counsel with the Ladies Professional Golf Association. And I didn't think I had any chance whatsoever in getting the job because I was thinking I don't have a sports background. But what I didn't realize at the time for the then general counsel, that what she was looking for was a corporate attorney. And so lo and behold, I got the job. I came in as senior counsel. By the time I left, I was general counsel, and then I moved on to the NCAA. So having had an opportunity to be a general counsel in a professional sports organization, which at the time I think I was one of only 2 other females. So it was really an honor, especially in a non-traditional sport like golf, where there are not a lot of African Americans. It was really my honor and privilege to represent the LPGA, but it certainly provided a platform for where I am now.
Sorry, I don't think you guys could hear me. I know I have a little insight, but I know Shameeka, you work with Zandria with the Golf Association. How was your experience with her? Could you tell me a little bit more about your experience and how you got started in?
Absolutely, Destiny. Working with Zandria was an absolute pleasure. It was my first opportunity while in law school. I interned with the Ladies Professional Golf Association. And to take a step back really quickly, law for me is a second career. So I didn't have the traditional path of, I wanted to be a lawyer from the time I was 6 years old. I loved numbers, finance, and I was very analytical. So I spent 10 years as an auditor prior to going back to law school. And in figuring out what area of the law I wanted to pursue, one of the things, and similar to Scott, I was a D1 athlete through college. And one of the things that piqued my interest was having the ability to work within a sports organization doing corporate law. So I think it was the year before I graduated, I applied for an internship with the Ladies Professional Golf Association. I knew nothing about golf. I knew nothing about Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised, always was in New York, but applied and met Zandria on my interview and absolutely loved her. She gave me the opportunity to intern for her. And the year after I graduated, the following year, which is when I graduated from law school, I got hired as an associate counsel. So when Zandria speaks and she's very passionate about being a good lawyer and taking opportunities, she certainly walks the walk. And she instills that in all of the junior attorneys. And so I recall when I first started at LPGA, that she was very, very well respected amongst the organization. And she was this business advisor. And I'm like, oh, I want to be you. And she kept reminding me, just, you have to focus on being a good lawyer. And at the time, I'm like, what does that mean? And in a lot of instances, it is really coming in and learning the business and being able to understand contracts, how the business works and things of that sort. So working for Zandria, she imparts a lot of knowledge on individuals that work with her. She also gives you opportunities, but she is very instrumental in helping to develop you and train you. And so my very first legal role was with the LPGA, and it really set me on the path for where I am today.
Awesome. Last but certainly not least, we have Demeka. I'm so excited to hear about your story. I know you went to law school in Louisiana, so tell me a little bit more about how you guys started out. I know that I did some research, and I know you started off with the Saints. But could you elaborate about your experience and where you are now?
Yeah, so this is my second career, but I didn't work as long as Shameeka. Once I graduated from Howard, I worked 2 years as a marketing manager for Ford Motor Company, which was really great. I'll probably go into more detail later, but it was just really great in getting some transferable skills that I think are really beneficial to me right now. But then I decided if I'm going to quit my job, a really good job, no one wanted me to quit, then I want to focus on sports. So I applied to 3 schools, Tulane, Howard, because I went to Howard undergrad, and then Marquette, just looking for a sports law program. So I knew I wanted to be in sports, like that was my goal. And so decided to go to Tulane, moved to New Orleans, and loved it. Blessed, really, really blessed to have 2 sports internships while I was in undergrad, one for the NBA Retired Players Association in Chicago, which is where I first met Shameeka, and I don't know if she remembers, but it was so long ago. And then as an intern, I met her, and now I talk to her all the time. And then my second internship was with the Saints. And that was just great experience, being able to work with an NFL team. And then I applied for the Minnesota Vikings summer internship as a 3L. So we typically, and now I'm sure we will never hire another 3L so that they can stick on, but we typically hire 2Ls and have them come in between the summer of their 2L year and 3L year. Well, I started as a 3L. I took the Louisiana bar, and then I moved the next day and started that Monday as an intern, which was supposed to be a 5-week internship. And long story short, I think we'll talk about it more later, but I just stayed around. I kept asking to stay. They kept trying to push me out, and eventually they asked me to take another bar. So I took the Minnesota bar 2 years ago, which is another hurdle. Thank God I was able to pass that. And then I worked as our chief of staff for 6 months with our former COO, who's now the Big Ten commissioner, which was really great experience. And then I transitioned into the associate counsel position, which I've had almost 2 years. And then at the end of this month, I'll be transitioning to another company with New Balance, working as their sports counsel. So I have been able to get in. Thank you. I'm able to get in sports and stay in sports. So that's a little bit of my story.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. And you kind of touched on the fact that you were able to gain transferable skills within those experiences. And instantly it makes me think about when I read Shameeka's bio, when she talked about the fact that she was able to become a trusted legal advisor, but also a business partner. So could you talk about your experience, Shameeka, about how you were able to gain that as well as implement that and be successful within your roles?
Sure. So being a trusted business advisor, it's easy to state, but it's not always easy to do. And in some instances, you don't even know like you are becoming this business advisor.
Right.
So when I think of a trusted business advisor, I think it's someone who senior executives or leadership turn to when they're contemplating important business decisions and or in times of trouble, right? So someone who, and they're looking not for someone to just deliver the legal advice, but someone who puts the legal advice into the context of what it means for the company, right? So how are you going to deliver this message? And I know as law students, we are very used to writing 25-page legal briefs, right? In the context of being with an organization, what senior executives usually need is a concise one-page summary with a plan of action and recommendations on how to move the business forward. So when I think of a trusted business advisor, those are the roles essentially that someone would play. And while there's no set playbook for becoming a trusted business advisor, there's a few things that individuals can do or think of in order to kind of get to that level. First, and as Zandria mentioned, and we mentioned in the introductions, is you have to build your substantive skills and your competence and how to be a good lawyer, right? And so what in fact does that mean, right? Do you know how to interpret a contract? Do you know what certain regulations state? And I think when you first start out, like that is the essence of what it is that you're supposed to be doing. You know, are there labor and employment laws that say you can or cannot do that? How does it affect your business? So you have to develop like substantively, like your skills and your competence in being a lawyer, a good lawyer. Secondly, in being a trusted business advisor is you have to know the business. Right. And so while a lot of instances we are siloed and, hey, here's the legal, you don't really want to be the check the box department. Like you want to know, how does the business make money? Like, what is the risk appetite of the company? Like, what keeps your CEO up at night? And for me, I initially started with what keeps my GC up at night. And how can I, in fact, alleviate some of the concerns? Like what's going on in the industry? Like in order for you to become a trusted business advisor and someone that they look to for sound advice and counsel and judgment, you have to know the business and where they're headed. Also, like try to understand, and every person or every department that I deal with, I consider them my business partner. And so try to understand your partner's underlying interests, right? So they're going to come to you with a question, usually want to answer to that question, but try to dig a little deeper, try to go below surface level to say, okay, well, what's prompting them to ask that question? How are you connecting the dots as an attorney so that you are understanding like how to counsel them, I would say. And then you have to be credible. You have to do these things consistently and over time. By you demonstrating this and demonstrating good judgment, you then become that person who they go to when they have questions. And it may not be legal questions, but how can we move the business forward?
Man, you have to know the business. I mean, that resonates. And I know Zandria and we have talked about this at times. If anybody else wants to chime in with any of their input, please feel free to. But that's so powerful in itself because, this environment it's always moving. It's always important to stay on top of things, to know, exactly how you're going to, play your next move. And it makes me think about, I'll take you back, to this time in March, when March Madness was canceled with the NCAA, which is one of the biggest events in like the world for sports. So, I'm coming to you, Zandria. Tell me about like your experience then. Like, how were you able to adapt when your world was basically, turned upside down?
Yeah, turned upside down is not even the phrase. I mean, it was complete insanity. And as you know, Destiny, it just so happened that when we canceled the tournament, I had also just stepped into the HR role. So not only were we trying to figure out, and I had to do both jobs simultaneously. So it wasn't like I stepped into the HR role and put the legal role on hold. I did both simultaneously. So while we were trying to figure out what was the legal impact to something like this, said, canceling one of the largest sporting events in the world, what is all of the fallout that is associated with that? But then we were also trying to figure out what are all the health and safety implications and issues that we have to think about with regards to our internal workforce as we now move to transition to work from home, because we are in the middle of a global pandemic. So I cannot even express the craziness that has ensued in the last 6 months, trying to navigate and manage through both sets of scenarios. But on the legal front, there's certainly, of course, the first thing you think about is what is the impact of the student athletes. That was so severe and so dire, and it was heartbreaking and crushing for all of us here at the NCAA, because despite what the media says about us, we really do care very deeply about the 450,000 student athletes that we serve. We are there for them, and everything that we do is about how do we make their experience as a collegiate athlete the best that they can ever have. And so that certainly was the first thing that came to mind. What do we do with now we cannot offer this experience for our student athletes? And it wasn't just men's and women's basketball. Those are the marquee sports. Those are the ones that get all of the play, but there were so many spring sports and winter sports that were impacted. So that was one thing. And then, of course, the health and safety aspect. How do we get student athletes home, and what should we be thinking about with regards to their practice schedules and all of the playing issues that they were going to have, to now transition to, we got to get them safe. We're not talking practice anymore, people. We're not talking, what you're going to do on campus anymore, and are you going to hit that benchmark in the weightlifting gym? We're talking really, truly trying to make sure that we are safeguarding lives. So there was that. And then you get to the business issues. The first thing, of course, is the revenue. March Madness is our largest source of revenue. Everybody knows it. It's all anybody ever talks about in the media when they talk about the dollars and cents of the NCAA, with the exception of the NIL issues, which I think we'll probably get into at some point. But then there's the business issue in the matter of the revenue. And so that is immediately, what's the impact to our broadcast partners? What's the impact to our corporate partners? And how are we going to navigate all of that? And then you just had all the numerous issues related to contracts. And this is when all those parts in the contract that you usually gloss over, or it's tempting to gloss over because you're like, force majeure, we'll never have to deal with that. That never happens. Nobody even knows what a force majeure is. All those things that Shameeka will tell you that when she worked for me, I would always nail in, like, you cannot gloss over. Those things are important. Pay attention. Well, here we were, bam, now we're right in the middle of it. And it's like, what do you do? So those were a lot of the legal issues. I mean, there were so many, Destiny, we talked about them. We've talked about them so much, but then you had the real impact to the people who serve the industry as well. And those were our employees. And what do we tell them? And how do we get them to not only safely transition to working from home and being able to get everything set up and figure it out, but then also get back to doing your jobs, because now what is supposed to be your job is going to look very different, because now we got a different set of issues and we got a different set of priorities and concerns. And it's really about, what's the contingency plan? What's our plan B? How are we going to move forward? And so, a lot of craziness with that. And I will tell you, going to Shameeka's point and Destiny's question about being a part of the business advisory, even though your core set of skills is being a lawyer, I will tell you, I sat in hours-long meetings talking about IT. What are our IT controls? What are our IT issues? Do we have firewalls? Can we, how many laptops do we have? And can we make sure that all of our employees are equipped with the equipment that they need, the technological equipment they need to be able to transition to work from home? I spent days and days with our operations team thinking about all of the operational issues, payroll, accounting, things like, what if somebody gets sick, and, those types of things. And how do we, is it an FMLA issue? Now we're getting to the HR issues. Is it going to be a FMLA? Are we going to require testing? And so these are all things that, sitting as a lawyer, having gone through law school, and to Shameeka's point about substantive knowledge, nobody's talking to me in law school about IT equipment, but yet here I am having these conversations. So it really kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning, which is, you are learning and you are exposing yourself, and it is incumbent upon you to take those opportunities to learn your environment and not just be the lawyer, but think outside of the legal box. Think about the implication. Think about, to Shameeka's point, how are you driving the business forward? Because you do not know when that time is coming where you will absolutely be looked to be the trusted business advisor, or you'll be looked to be the IT person or the operations person or the HR person or what have you. And so I just can't emphasize enough how for a lot of us, I come across so many law students who, and I'd say, tell me what your interests are and what are you looking to do? And they say, well, I don't want to do employment law, and I know I don't like, family law. I don't want to do those things. And I tell you, and Destiny will tell you this, that I say, you're doing yourself a disservice because you are cutting off opportunities for learning that you never know when they will come into play in your career. So that's just something to think about, because I always try to share that perspective with students that I talk with.
No, I mean, that's amazing. And it really just speaks to the importance of just being adaptable. And honestly, I appreciate that because it gives the audience an aspect and understanding of what it looked like on the organizational side. Because, as you know, the member side and the organizational sides have two different experiences. And from that, I kind of want to transition to you, Scott. I know you and I discussed it a little bit earlier about Notre Dame. And if many of you don't know, Notre Dame is an independent school. They're not associated with any particular conference. So recently, Notre Dame made some huge headlines in the news, basically that they were going to be a part of the ACC for this season, which is groundbreaking. And so, Scott, I wanted to know, how was your world affected by this during this transition? What are some things that you think people can stay tuned into to understand exactly what Notre Dame went through within that process, as well as how they can, make an impact within that later on in their career if they choose to do so?
Sure. So I transitioned from the NCAA to here. And so to Zandria's point, I don't think the NCAA, they did not like the idea of me working from home, and they let me work from home for a few months. And so I don't know if they were ready. And I mean, hats off to them for adapting as quickly as they did, because going from a place that just felt really skittish about people working from home to everyone having to work from home or work remotely, whatever the right way to say it is. I mean, man, that had to have been hard. And so again, hats off to you, because from a membership perspective, I think the service has still been incredible. So that's a feather in your cap, and you can tell everyone up on the third floor.
I sure will.
We
need some good news, some good vibes, guys. So we will share.
I know when I was there, I didn't get it enough, so I'll give you some. But back to your question, I think, so sort of, if you've never been to South Bend, I don't blame you. There's not a whole lot going on here other than Notre Dame. Beautiful city, I'm getting used to it, but Notre Dame is its center, right? And so typically we live, if I could pull my computer out, we live 2 blocks from campus, and so I can see the stadium from my house, which is cool. But there's streets and streets of people who just buy homes to come to Notre Dame games. These alum who just fly in, go to a game. And so that's the typical game weekend. And I say all that to kind of bring you to where we are today. And so on campus, back in April, we were just starting to work remotely, and I approve schedules. So our office has to approve every team schedule. We make sure that it has we have the right amount of games. Are we starting at the right time? Contracts, are we good there? We're just trying to make sure everything's right. And so for the first time I thought something was really wrong was when we had our traditional schedule set up, right? Your Stanfords, your USCs, your Navies, independent. We play we play some folks that are new, but we play the same 3 almost every year. And when our AD said, hey, look, pump the brakes on the schedule, I knew there's probably going to be some issues. And as things evolved, we found out that there were going to be a couple of those conferences, the Pac-12 in particular, who decided not to play football. I don't know if that's where they're still at. I think there's some whispers that they're going to try to get it going here in October. But at the time we were making our schedule, two of our traditional teams dropped out. So now we're trying to, create a schedule. And I think things were pretty hectic for a while. And I think that's where the ACC piece came from, right? So we're losing teams like Navy, we're losing teams like USC and Stanford, and then here comes the ACC saying, not only are we going to play, but we'll play with you as part of us for this season, and that worked out. And so far, we played our first game as a member of the ACC. Things are going well, I guess. We'll see. This weekend we got South Florida, so that's our +1. ACC created a schedule where it was 9 opponents +1. We'll see how it goes this weekend. But to your point, what changes, what things we should look for on the horizon? I don't know. For Notre Dame, I don't know what the future holds, but I think for college football, you're going to see some weird shifts. I think you're seeing some things happen this year that people either have never thought about doing or just didn't do for whatever reason. Like, for instance, I think you're going to start seeing more regional games. I think back to the Final Four being canceled, right? So that's a huge revenue stream for not only the NCAA, but for the membership, right? So now we're talking having no football or having football at 10% or 0% of your stadium. So now we're talking one huge revenue stream back in the spring-ish and one huge revenue stream now in the fall. And it's so, I think schools are going to start realizing, like, we need to figure out a better way to do what we've been doing to try to save some money. So I think you're going to see more regional games. I think you'll see less FBS teams paying FCS teams to play them, right? So you probably see more FBS and FBS games. The other one that I think is going to start happening, and this is all me just kind of seeing into the future. And when I was at the NCAA, I worked a lot with the Football Oversight Committee. So seeing these things kind of evolve there, but now just taking a step back on campus, I think you're going to see coaches get a longer leash, which is kind of weird. But these contracts were created with such huge buyouts that I don't think schools are going to have the money to pay the buyouts. So you're going to see coaches who otherwise would have been fired within 2 years probably get 3 or 4 years. I don't know, this dude's just firing away in my yard. If you guys can hear him, I'm sorry. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think those are some big things coming on the horizon. Just money is going to be tight.
Let me go to you, Demeka. I read in your bio, and to go off of what Scott was saying, just in itself of just figuring out exactly what the future holds and planning, it really impressed me, and really I appreciated your involvement within the Minnesota Vikings. I know you spoke previously that you're a proud alumna of Howard University, and what I want to know is, within your initiatives at the Minnesota Vikings about, creating the HBCU, I think it's the Battle of the Brains, as well as different other HBCU initiatives within your company. How can we do that? Or how can HBLS alumni here at Southern University do that and have that balance when they're able to, incorporate their passion for wanting to be involved within, HBCUs? How are you able to accomplish that? And, what is the importance of it?
So for me, I think it's really important. And I see comments sometimes, HBCUs are not the only way you can get your diverse talent, right? So I totally understand that. I didn't go to a HBCU for law school, but it's a great way to find talent, and I recognize that as an alum, and I think it's catchy right now, right? It's really, really trendy. But before even being able to bring that HBCU conversation into play, if you are a student and you are wanting to get in with these companies so then you can make that impact, right? It's really, for us, it's about following up. So HBCU Battle of the Brains it's a competition for undergraduate and graduate students at HBCUs. If they're like into business or STEM, it was during South by Southwest weekend. But now I think that may change. But it's put on by one of my friends, his name is Gregory, in Austin, and he has a team that puts this event on, but the NFL is a title sponsor. And so we got involved in that competition, trying to create a pipeline for HBCUs. But I say all that to say, when we meet the students, we don't always get a lot of follow-up, right? So as someone from an HBCU who wants to push the HBCU, we need to recruit at these schools, not just your Howard and Spelman and Morehouse, but your smaller schools, right? Your Southern and your Prairie View. Let's see how can we help Morris Brown, right? So we want to look at all these HBCUs, but when you get your company to go and sponsor these events, then it's on the students and the faculty and staff to make sure that they show up. There was one time that we wanted to recruit at an HBCU and the faculty advisor never followed up with me. So, right, that looks bad on me, but then I'm trying to push HBCUs and that person didn't follow up. So we got to put some responsibility on the staff, but then the students. These companies spend all this money to go to events like this, and students don't always follow up. For the students that do, that's how you stand out. And I think sometimes students hear us drill it into their heads, and I remember people drilling it into our heads while I was in school to follow up. And it's like, yeah, it sounds easy, but people are not following up. I think we have 3 students that continuously follow up, and we have their names written down, and we share their emails, even though it's super simple. But this person is checking in, just asking how we're doing, what can they do to help, this is what's going on. That makes you stand out. And then it's like, okay, we see that we can get talent from these certain schools, so this is why we will go and focus on these schools. So that's how students from HBCUs can stand out, but also bring and attract companies to their schools because they're following up and the companies want more. And so they're saying, okay, let's go back to Prairie View because we see that they have students that are following up and we want more of that person, right? So I think that's one way that students trying to get the opportunities that they can get in. But then once you get in as an intern, you have to deliver. That's one really, really big thing because once you deliver, you're always a representation of your school. So I know from students, not even at HBCUs, but they get in and if they don't deliver, and they don't do well, we start talking, do we want to go back to that school? Because we're looking over the past few years, we look at the talent we've gotten. If it's not good, that makes us not want to go back. So if you do get the opportunity, we need you to deliver because you represent your school and that drives people back to go to your school and say, okay, we want more of you. So let's go back and go to these schools because we want more people like you to come into our organizations. And then once you get in full time, there's 2 things. One, again, is delivering, like everyone has talked about. You have to deliver first. These events and speaking and panels are cool, but like my goal is to be a great attorney, right? I see myself as an attorney, and I can't make an impact in recruiting if they're like, okay, Demeka, you want to recruit at HBCUs, but we need you to do this work, right? Like this is additional on top of our jobs. You don't get paid for. So it's like you need to deliver. And again, once you deliver, they want more of you. So they're like, okay, Demeka, what ideas do you have that where we can recruit at? Where can we get more people that look like you, right? With your attitude or these things. So I think that's another way you can bring it back to your school or to other HBCUs to get them into the conversation, which to me is really, really important. And then the last thing I'll say is if your company starts these diversity commissions or these councils or committees, I say volunteer. It's not for everyone, and it's additional on top of your job, and you may not get all the recognition, and you won't get paid for it. But for me, that's how I have my seat at what is being done, like my seat at the table. You know what? They have this council. Let me apply for it to get on because I know that's how I'll get my voice heard. That's how I'll make an impact. And I can't say, I want us to do all these things, but when they set up a platform to get your voice heard, you're like, oh, I'm too busy for that. Oh, I'm not going to get paid. Because then it's like, okay, well, they're giving you this platform. It may not be the best way for change, but this is how that company is trying. So that is probably one of the best ways for you to start getting your voice heard and get into the room where these conversations are had. Where's the pipeline? How do we get these students? Who should we interview, right? Maybe if it's not HBCU, but diverse talent, how do we get those people into the conversations?
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it really resonates with me because like you said, it's not always about fortifying those connections, but it's really about maintaining them when you're in those environments because, you know, you not only want to, you know, open that door, but you want to keep that open for the next person coming behind you, as well as just figuring out different ways of how you can leave your lasting impact. It makes me think about, you said it earlier, the fact that nowadays it's kind of like, in a way, a trend, with different companies, there, different social initiatives, diversity initiatives. And so we want to make sure that while we're in those places that we're really speaking up, and now as well as speaking up for the people coming behind us, but to make, a more comfortable and lasting environment to where we can be productive as well as be, comfortable in those environments. So Demeka, I think that was spot on. I appreciate that so much. And I know some other people really resonated with that as well. And I'll give my last question before we start the Q&A to Shameeka lastly. Shameeka, your resume is by far like amazing. Here you are, you work for the Chicago Cubs, which is one of the, most historical organizations in the baseball field. I know you worked with golf with Zandria, and I know you have a previous background, in finance and business. Could you, elaborate a little bit more about what do you think made you successful and got you to where you were? What are some skills that you think people could start working on now to get to where they want to be, whether that's working in sports or whether that's working in entertainment? What are some lasting things that you think will be impactful to people?
Sure. And I just want to echo both your sentiments and Demeka's sentiments about having a seat at the table, or once you get your foot in the door, just the importance of, if you have a seat at the table, you have to speak up. You have to use your voice. You're not in the room just to occupy a seat. But what you'll find is that, and I know as a law student, it may be a bit intimidating, but you'll find your voice. But don't be afraid to add your perspective to an issue, because if you're there for a reason. And so speaking along the lines of, opening the door for someone else, there's so many people who have set the stage for me to be where I'm at today. And Zandria is one of those people. And again, we have to figure out, like, how do we send the elevator back down, and realizing that we're not just there to be there for ourselves, but also for the people behind us. And so that's very important. For me, and being at the Chicago Cubs, and with my path, I've had experience on the league level, now at the team level, with a venue owner and operator of live events. And so what I really do is bring every experience to my next experience. And so at the Chicago Cubs, I'm able to, if I get a question about, hey, here's something that we want to do as it relates to developing our entertainment district, I'm able to also lend the experience that I gained at the Speedway Corporation as we developed a multi-use retail dining venue outside of the Speedway. I'm able to bring that perspective to the room. And it's valued because it's in a lot of ways, my current employer may not have thought of certain things, but I've seen it before and I'm very vocal about it. But for me in terms of where I am today, I think relationships. I cannot undermine the value and importance of what it is to build a relationship. And when a lot of people say, hey, like, I don't want to network, or I don't want to go to certain events, I don't like saying the word networking. Again, I focus on relationship building, because in essence, what is going to help you and what has helped me in my career is the people that I know, the people that I've worked for. And my work ethic is impeccable. I strive to never disappoint someone who has given me an opportunity. And so taking that into consideration, I make sure that I'm prepared. I make sure that I'm reliable. I make sure that my work is impeccable. I make sure that what I say I'm going to do, I actually do. So the whole delivering part of it, I think we touched a little bit before about being adaptable and flexible, and that's crucial, right? And so in law school, in a lot of instances, we say, hey, I want to work in sports, and it's got to be one of the big four sports. So NBA, NFL, MLB, or NHL. And we're so laser focused on it. I think we miss out the opportunity to really get your foot in the door and really get the experience by thinking outside the box, right? So I think Zandria had mentioned it earlier, and it was almost the same for me, but Ladies Professional Golf Association, I knew nothing about golf. I knew nothing about Daytona Beach, and golf is already a niche sport. So now ladies golf is a niche within a niche, right? And so a lot of people would have turned it down. But I looked at it to say, oh, I'm definitely going to get the opportunity. I'm definitely going to take advantage of it. What am I going to learn? And what you find in a lot of these organizations that are smaller or are minor league teams or not the big four is that you really have the ability to not just come in and do your job, but there's such a need for individuals to assist in other areas of the business that you otherwise would not get if you went to a big four. So I think that being flexible, being open-minded, never saying no to an opportunity, especially when someone identifies you as someone, to take on something, like in a lot of instances, they may see something in you that you don't know. Or again, it is just another skill to put in your toolbox that will ultimately help you for when you become that general counsel or that senior counsel. And so looking at every opportunity and trying to figure out what is it trying to teach me, I think is very instrumental and something that all of the students should be doing now, as well as, okay, what relationships can I make? And not just with people in the profession, but which one of my classmates, do I need to foster? Because at the end of the day, when there's a question that I have no idea about, I have a network of people that are ready, willing, and able to pick up the phone and say, hey, make sure you look into X, Y, and Z. So I think relationship building is good, adaptability, flexibility, treating your career as a journey, and just kind of being open-minded to the possibilities is something that will ultimately help you get to where you need to be.
And can I just piggyback off Shameeka's point?
Yes, please.
On relationships, genuine relationships to me are the most important. So not which we've all sent out the code email. I did it back in the day, right? So the code email is cool, but really, really getting to know someone, whether it's going to the conferences like SLA, Sports Lawyers Association conference, which is where I first met Shameeka, or there's BSLA, Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association, which is great, which I went to with Shameeka again. But these conferences and these other opportunities, you get to meet people, but create those really genuine conversations, because if you just reach out to someone when you need something, which I think we probably all get hit up for something when someone needs a job, someone needs something from us, needs tickets, needs sponsorship, whatever, you're kind of looking like, okay, don't ask how I am. If you need something, just let me know. I'll see if I can do it or not. But if you have a genuine relationship with someone, if a job comes up, I'm automatically going to think of Shameeka, or I'm going to think of Scott, because we've developed these relationships, so they don't have to ask me for anything. Or if it's someone at a firm, right, they don't have to ask me for work. I know that they're a good person, a solid person. Their work is probably the same, and I will think of them automatically and give them that opportunity. So it's not just reaching out to as many people as you can to see like who I can talk to, who I can get these informational coffees with, but it's like, okay, you get the coffee, but continue to build, because that's how you really get those jobs that everyone doesn't know about, but a couple people do. You come to mind, or they put your name in circles you didn't even know about, right? So I think that's really, really key, and sometimes people can miss out on that. 2 genuine relationships versus 10 like blanket emails will get you much further in life.
Absolutely. Man, y'all just dropped some gems, Demeka and Shameeka. And let me just come back to Scott and Zandria. We have about 2 more minutes until we have to start the Q&A. But I really just want you guys to speak to the people out there in the audience who may be students, who may be recent alumni, or maybe people in their careers who maybe wanted to make a career change. What would you say to them? What are some lasting words that you would give them as they, matriculate within their career?
Well, let me just say, you guys are probably like, why is this lady just grinning the whole time? I just, Shameeka knows how I feel about her, but I just have such a sense of pride and joy when I listen to her and talk about her career, because if there's any panelists on this panel, I know this lady walks the walk, and she does what she's saying do. Shameeka came in as an intern for me. There were just so many things that I was like, oh, I could talk about that. But Shameeka came in as an intern. I didn't have a job for her at the time. And Shameeka will tell you, I was very tough on her because my expectations of her were through the roof, whether she thought it was fair or not, whether she wanted it or asked for it. But that's where my expectations were for her. And I didn't cut her any slack. She worked for me for that summer. I didn't have a job for her, but the following year when the job came up, she was the first person I thought about. It was not even close. I will say, you know, what I found in Shameeka that I look for in anybody, any young person or any person who's looking, whether it's career change or coming in the door as a fresh out of law school, it is what I saw in Shameeka. I'm looking for you to be motivated. I'm looking that you can take feedback and critique, and you can take it and let it make you better, not take it and be defensive and take it and now you got an attitude about it, or take or hold it and be personal about it, like, well, she doesn't like me. I never saw any of that from Shameeka. It was just, okay, I got it. I'm looking for someone who, as we've already all have talked about, someone who is willing to embrace the opportunities. Now, that's you, Destiny. I've seen you do that. I don't care what it is, you guys. Destiny has been in every meeting, every conversation, picked up every project. She doesn't care. She's not wrinkling up her face. She is I don't even know what she's having to do to get her work done while she's in school, carrying her full school load and still being able to deliver on the things that our entire legal team is asking of her, because she is the only one we have. And so we're all coming at her from different angles, and she's still getting it done. So looking for somebody who is absolutely committed to getting in there and doing the work. And then this notion of relationship building. So I will say, again, Shameeka is one of the best at this. And from a very genuine perspective, like Demeka said, really building the relationship. Shameeka, at this point, her Rolodex is bigger than mine, because she really does. When she gets to know people, she really starts to know what you'll talk to Shameeka and she will know things about people's families and what's happening with them outside of their work life. So yes, when they come and say, hey, can I get those Cubs tickets? She has that relationship that's really built in and already something that she's been maintaining. I don't know if Radiance Mac is out there. I hope you're out there, Radiance, but I will tell you, Radiance is someone who is already on the ball and has reached out to me, and it felt genuine. And me and Radiance, we're going to connect, just so you know. But again, I do appreciate and think that that's something that students need to be looking to do. Not just hit you up because I want you to give me a job or give me an internship, but reaching out. And there's nothing wrong with that. I remember what it was like when you're trying to get somebody, just give me a chance. I'll show up and I'll prove and I'll do and I'll be great. So it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but I do think it sometimes we can get caught trying to be so intentional, and I gotta do this because I'm trying to get to this career and this job by this time, and sometimes we just forget the journey that Shameeka spoke of.
Go Shameeka. I mean, that was amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. And I love to be candid, I love to see Black women thriving in this industry. We make up less than 2% of the legal field. So when you see us, you see the representation, it gets you excited. And it's just beautiful to see that sisterhood within this area. And so that'll be my last question. Well, let me go to Scott real quick. Let me ask you this, Scott. I know that you are a Southern alumni, SULC alumni. You have walked these same hallways that we have walked. I'm sure you've probably experienced a Professor North or Professor Jones. What would you say to those students or that alumni out there? What are some things that they could start working on to just, plant their seed within this industry as well as within their career?
Well, the first thing is, for me, I think you're in an incredible place, and you're in a great spot to put you in a position. You're in a spot that puts you in a position to be successful, not just in sports. Whatever you want to do, SULC is going to put you in that position. Now it's, what are you going to do with it, right? Like a couple of folks on the panel have already kind of talked about it, but I mean, for the most part, we're given this opportunity, and then what are you going to do with that opportunity when you have it? Some people run with it, and some people drop it, and that's just how it works, right? That's life. But I encourage you to run with it, hold it tightly, and run with it because you have this path in front of you, and it's an incredible journey that you're about to start. And if you're still there, embrace it. And to everyone else's point, I remember when I was leaving law school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to this person, and that'll mean I'm connected now to this person. It's like, that's terrible. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Again, I went from teaching third grade, not knowing anything, to like blowing off everything in law school because all I wanted to do was get into sports and work in college athletics. And so that's kind of what I did. I didn't really know what I didn't know. And so I would go to these things. I'm like, oh yeah, now I know these people. It's like, I don't know that person at all. All I did was get a business card off of that person, walked away, and then hit them up on LinkedIn. Now I know the person. It's like, no, I don't. Like, you have to take that opportunity to take that, actually build a relationship and move it forward, because there's so many people who want to get into this profession, and there's so many people that are in law school right now saying I want to get there, and they'll do what they have to do to get there, and if that's take something for free, they'll take something for free, and if that's work 15-hour days, they're going to work 15-hour days, and if you're only willing to work 14, they're going to take somebody else, and if you're only willing to give them a business card and walk away, they're going to take somebody else. So like, you have to think about how the decisions you make right now and how those are going to look a year down the road when you bump into that person again. Do they remember you, or are you just a business card? And make them remember you, and make them take a photograph in their memory of your face, so that they remember who you are when you bump into them again. An opportunity will be there.
Yeah. That's powerful. I hope y'all have been out there who are watching, have been taking notes, because I have. Listen, you guys have given us so many gems. I'm going to go to the Q&A real quick, but I'll just give a brief, wrap up of what I really got from this panel in itself. I think it was Shameeka, you said it. Bring every experience to your next experience within any role you are in. I think somebody said, Scott, you just said it. Run with it, embrace it. Actually build the relationships. You touched on it, Demeka, about having genuine relationships within this field. So I appreciate you guys so much for just blessing us with your knowledge, giving us your time. And I'll just read off about 2 or 3 questions since we're running short on time. My first one is, how do you identify mentors within the industry? And I think it kind of happened inorganically or organically between Zandria and Shameeka. But could somebody, talk about how would you be able to find a good mentor, and what are some things that you can do as a mentee?
Well, since no one's jumping out there, I didn't want to go here because I feel like Shameeka and I have already talked a lot about this. So if anybody else wants to speak on it, then go ahead. But, I will say, I think for me, if you're looking for a mentor, I think you have to show your mentor that you're somebody they can get behind. I've done recommendations for former law clerks and referrals for former law clerks. And then I have done recommendations. I have done, let me do the extra thing. Let me pick up the phone and let me call this person. And when I see them at the sports lawyers convention or whatever, I'm going to make sure that I go find them because I want to talk about this particular mentee that I have, or this particular law student that I thought was pretty admirable. But I think you gotta show them that you're somebody that they can get behind. As Shameeka talked about, have impeccable work ethic, be diligent, be focused, be serious. So many people want to get into sports and entertainment law because it is sports and entertainment. I can't tell you the people that jump out there with, I'm a huge NCAA fan, or shoot, even though Shameeka mentioned how women's golf is a niche within a niche, so many people, I love women's golf. I mean, that's not the lead in conversation, because what I always say is, I'm not looking for you to come in and be a fan and a stan, and I can't even get you to close your job because you're looking at the athletes and you're not getting the work done. Or I remember one law clerk I had that literally could not punch out at 5 o'clock fast enough because he was trying to get out on the golf course because he loved to play golf every single day. And so I was like, but wait, the work is here. We still got to work. So I think you have to show that you are serious about the business of being a lawyer and serious about the business of the organization, and not just in it because you want tickets or you want that for that courtside experience. And all of that is there. The red carpets, it is fabulous, guys. I won't tell you that it's not, but there's so much more to what we do than just being a part of that glitzy part. And then if you want to be a mentor, I think that there has to be a certain amount of dedication. What I don't do, I'm pretty focused on how I mentor. I don't just pick up everybody, and it's not because my heart isn't in it, and it's not because I don't want to, or don't think I should, but it's because I do want to be intentional about my helping mentor, and I want to really be a resource, and I want to be the person that can give you the time and give you back my energy, and not just, I got a list of people that call me a mentor because I've just been out there and I answer a question here or there. It is really a lifelong engagement and relationship that I try to form. So, I mean, those are a couple of my takeaways.
Oh yeah, and I'll just say, Zandria, I don't think you try to it, you do it. I know from my personal experience, I may be biased, but Zandria is the best mentor and boss you can ask for, and it's definitely an inspiration to me as a law student. And so lastly, I think I have time for just one more question, but I'll go to you, Demeka, because I know you really sparked it off with this. And the question is from an anonymous person, but they wanted to know, how do you continue to build genuine relationships when you don't live in the same area or only see that person once a year?
Yeah, so I'm a huge random texter, and I think some of my mentees are on this video call right now, and they know it could be 2 weeks, and I'll think of them like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Let me know how you're doing. Now we're in the age of the Zoom and the Teams call, so I wasn't doing that before, but I have started to do them more now with my mentees. But I think it's really, really being intentional, right? Because everyone is so busy, and I know everyone gets hit up so much from people, like Zandria said, who want to connect and who want to be a mentee of yours. And so the people who follow up are really persistent, and saying, okay, you didn't get to me this week, because there's some weeks where my email just gets clogged up, and I'm sure everyone's does. But if they're persistent, then they check back in like, hey, just checking in, seeing how you're doing. This is what I have been doing. I know one of our interns, Bree, who I think is on, Brianna Reed, who I think is actually working for NCAA, but she followed up with me and continued to follow up with me, and I was able to get her an internship because she would follow up, and I wouldn't talk to her after every email, but I did see them. And eventually we would connect, and I just said, okay, she was someone I could get behind, like Zandria said, and I'm like, I think she has the work ethic because she continues to follow up intentionally, and that's how I was able to do that for her. So I think you have to be really, really intentional with the relationships that you want to foster, because it's not always going to be easy. But there's so much technology available now that it's not an excuse that someone's not answering my phone calls. Like, okay, let's get something on the calendar, even if it's in 2 months, right? Can we get this video chat or something? These are the things I want to talk to. So it can happen even if you're not in the same city. Just be intentional and make sure you're willing to put the work in to foster the relationship.
Hey, Destiny, can I jump on that real quick? I just want to say, don't look for an immediate return either. That's the other thing. It's like if I don't get the internship that you have right now, then okay, you won't hear from me again. It is building blocks. It is time. You are fostering a relationship, and it takes time, and it may be years down the road before anything comes out of it other than just the relationship itself. But don't be don't think you're jumping off the boat if you don't get out of it right away what you were hoping to get out of it. And if you do, well, then you jump off the boat, and then we realize what it was. But give it time.
Can I add one last point to that?
Yeah.
The sports and entertainment world is so small that everyone knows everyone. And so to Zandria's point is, if you didn't get the internship with the NCAA, if she hears of another opportunity, comes or whatever, she's going to recommend that to you as well, or recommend you to that company. But also, if you leave a bad impression and only seem like I'm laser focused on this, and I really don't want to do the work, I'm more caught up in the hype of the role, that gets out as well. So just be mindful of that.
Small world peace. Assume people are talking. Just assume when you're talking to someone that they're talking to someone too. And you just always assume that that's what's going on, because people know each other. And yeah, you're right. It's a tiny world. I don't even want to, it's not even small. It's tiny. And so they'll find out. And they'll either find out you're an awesome kid who's going to come in and work, or they're going to find out you're a jerk who blew them off. And that's just how it's going to work. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you guys are right. And like I said, you've given so much knowledge and so many powerful messages. And on behalf of Southern University Law Center, the students, alumni, the school itself, we can't appreciate you guys enough and just say thanks to you, because we appreciate your time and the wisdom that you guys have given us. And honestly, I hope it's okay, but follow these people, connect with them on LinkedIn if you can, because you guys are definitely some people who are going to be people want to keep in touch with. So I appreciate the opportunity to be the moderator for this panel. It's been a pleasure just connecting with you guys and getting to know you more, Scott, Demeka, and Shameeka. So thank you so much. And this is going to close out the Legal Business of Sports panel. If you guys have any further questions, please let me know. I think we have a follow-up panel after this. So please stay tuned in for that. But thank you guys again for your time.
Hey, great job, everyone. This is wonderful.
Yes,
great job, Destiny.
Bye. Have a good day.
Nice job, everyone. Thank you.